What
Yeah.
has your sexuality got to do with being a football supporter?
Well, I mean, we sort of covered it a little bit. You know, the thing is, your sexuality is, it changes through different. So basically, let's say your sexuality is a bubble right here, and let's say that you're watching a movie, your sexuality just sort of goes really small. You forget about being gay or bisexual or trans. You forget all about that. You're just watching a film, and it sort of happens the same at football. But what does happen is that the words, and we were talking about the vocal side of it, it starts to make you feel actually uncomfortable. Maybe you're around wrong people that if they were to see you. So let's say for the panelists that are on right now, and people to see all the great work that, Stephanie, Anwar, Daniel, Chris, Maria are doing. And I know Maria and Anwar are allies, but let's say out of the four of us, people see our faces and go, that's that puff. That's that gay guy. That's that faggot. That is something that always worries me. And someone's sexuality is then something really big in football. And people who haven't experienced football, walked away from football, walk back into a stadium like Villa Park, are worried because, what if they're openly queer? What if they are experimenting with makeup on their faces? And that's them. That's their authentic self. You should be able to turn up to work and you should be able to turn up to football exactly the same person. You shouldn't ever have to change. And unfortunately, I changed the way that I am in a game. I don't know what it is. If someone was to record me, I guess I'm like, I make sure I drink a beer, and I wouldn't want to have a glass of wine. And it's not the fact that I'm thinking someone's going to call me something. It's just I'm worried that if something was to happen, it takes me back to when I was at school. And when I used to play football at school and I was in the changing room, my friend Miles said to me, what girls do you find attractive? And I was red in the face. I felt like I was burning up. And that's exactly how I still feel today at times when someone tries to call me out or sort of give away my sexual orientation or ask me the question and go, you've got a girlfriend, right? If I'll be next to a Villa fan and look, there's lovely Villa fans that I sit, and obviously we know in different parts of the stadium, you're going to sit with a bit more family-oriented parts of the stadiums. And the thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, right, I didn't think you were gay. But I just don't know the person that I might be sitting, and the person in front of me, obviously, like I said in this call, who had to report using the word faggot 3 times. Imagine what I had said to him, but maybe he might have been, oh, sorry, but he wouldn't have used that word after. It's a really interesting conversation to have, but as a football fan, football players that are playing on the pitch are also football fans. The staff that work at the club are also football fans. And they are turning up. And yes, we know football players get paid a lot of money, but let's look at them as an employee, as a club. They still want to turn up into an environment that feels safe and welcoming. And that's the same for a fan who pays their money to go and watch a game. They should feel safe and welcomed as well. So I won't go massively into it because I know that all of us could talk about this for about the next 10 years, okay, quite easily, and we would still enjoy it. But I will move on with the slide from that unless anyone has any questions.
Just on that, Sam. I mean, so you are part of Villa and Proud. So Daniel, if I could just ask you the same question, but from a person who's not actually involved in a existing LGBTQ plus fan group. What's that feel like? Do you have the urge and would you like to do something at Reading? And also, looking back at the question, what's your sexuality got to do with being a football supporter? Also around the playing side as well, because I know we had conversations about you wanting to play grassroots football and how you finding that difficult. So Daniel, maybe you'd like to share a little bit of that?
Yeah, so about me wanting to play grassroots football, I used to play from the age of 5 to the age of 12, 13. And I stopped when I realized I was different to everyone because I thought, oh, I might not be accepted here. And it's probably been the biggest regret of my life because I've missed playing ever since. And I'm like, I hope to join like an LGBTQ plus club in the future. And the reason I stopped is just the fear of the unknown and the fear of not knowing how people will view you, whether that's your teammates or the fans who watch you at the games. And that's still a current problem. I mean, relating back to the question, what's your sexuality got to do? It's part of your identity. You take your identity with you to the football game. But like Sam said, there's been times where I act like a fake person. So maybe someone doesn't know. Maybe someone doesn't like notice me to try and make someone not know who I am, and just to sort of fit in with like the culture in football stadiums and football grounds. And without a supporters group here in Reading at the moment, it's quite a lonely place because I don't know any LGBTQ plus Reading fans. And what a supporters group will do, it'll bring the LGBTQ fans together, and it'll allow us to. It's not just about having the fan group there. It's also about the social aspects. It's all about. There's a whole package that comes with having a fan group, and I'm really passionate about it. And I really want to, in the near future, definitely get involved with setting up one for Reading FC. Yeah, definitely. Like I said at the start when I introduced myself, I haven't experienced directly homophobia, but I've experienced fans giving it to players, and it's not a nice feeling. And there's still so much we've got to do to really make fans like myself be able to go to football games and not put on a fake face. And that starts with, for me, having the presence of a fan group, so you can talk to people like yourself who are in the same situation and see if you can find a way where you can all be your unique selves and not get too much criticism for it. I mean, like I said earlier, I've been working with Cheltenham Town, and one of the features I've been doing with a Cheltenham Town fan, he got homophobically abused by one of his own fans on an away day a few seasons ago. So it's insane. And obviously there's no LGBTQ plus fan group there. And so it just shows you when someone suffers homophobic abuse, maybe having that fan group there will actually help to provide the support, because not everyone experiences it, but people, I think there's a stat from Stonewall saying that I think 7 in 10 LGBTQ fans either experience homophobia directly at football grounds or they witness it. And like I think Sam said he had to confront someone at a Villa game before. I mean, I think we've all probably, as LGBTQ fans and even heterosexual fans, we've all probably seen homophobia happen at football. But it's all about acting upon it. And I think one way that it will get better is having the presence of fan groups. So the fan who got abused at Cheltenham Town can then have the fan group there for him to go and confide in and give him advice about what to do. Because it scared him off. And obviously he's back now watching Cheltenham Town, but he had a break from football. And I witnessed it back a few years ago at a Reading away game. And I had a break from football in terms of watching it, because I just thought there's no hope. So yeah, like your sexuality, it's your identity and you want to express it at a football game. But unfortunately, I don't think you can do it at a men's football game. But what I've noticed is that when I watch a women's football game and when I report on women's football, I feel like I'm more free to be myself. And the players and the fans actually there don't really care about my sexuality. They embrace differences. They embrace the diversity. Whilst I feel like the men's game, I feel like there's such a sort of ingrained, deep-rooted homophobia, still a problem still there. And obviously we've got to deal with that. And I feel one way we can hopefully deal with it is by hopefully in the future getting every EFL and Premier League club to have an affiliated LGBTQ plus fan groups, because I think the support they give to LGBT fans like myself is massive.
No, I appreciate that, Dan. Obviously, Chris has got something to jump in, but I think that's key, and it's that personal insight and that opinion. I think is really important for everyone to actually listen. But sorry, Chris, you was going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to make 2 points. One about the women's game, and one about every EFL club having an LGBTQ plus fan group. I agree with you in principle on that one, Daniel. But I think one thing that we've definitely seen from Pride in Football is the fan groups that work are the ones that are both that have will from fans and from the club. Because if you've got will from the club but no fans to do it, it won't work because it feels inauthentic already. And and you can smell it that if the club's just trying to kind of put a rainbow up somewhere. And then equally, I think if you've got a bunch of fans and they've got some support from the club, it doesn't have to be, as Steph said, you don't have to like sort of sit hand in hand with them. It's just, have a good enough relationship with them. Then that's when I think that's when it works well. So I think that's just a point to note, and I'm happy to chat to you about that.
Yeah.
On the women's game, I think you're absolutely right. From a fan perspective, there's a different kind of inclusive environment. I think it's much more. I think it still remains, and there are out players in the women's game, but it still remains challenging but it's wrapped up with sexism and what it means to be a woman, and with kind of nonsense around gender stereotypes, because there is still something about like, women playing sport makes them a bit lesbian. And so you get a bit of, sometimes you get over-indexing in the women's game for trying not to say there are too many lesbians in there because you don't want to put people off. So there's all sorts of things going on. But I think from a fan perspective, it is definitely a more inclusive environment. But for me, I like going to women's games because there's less aggro.
Definitely.
You're there to support your team, not to denigrate the opposition.
Yeah. Can I come back on a point you made, the first point? About the EFL clubs and all clubs having one. It's the fact it doesn't have to be like a demand from, or like demography doesn't have to be like have a high LGBTQ plus representation, because these are we want LGBTQ plus all inclusive fan groups, and that doesn't just mean having LGBT people, that's also having allies, heterosexual people. And I think there'll be enough people as allies who would join these fan groups to make it, even if they're still small fan groups, there is still enough to make it a decent size. So it's not just about having LGBTQ plus fans, it's about having more fans, heterosexual fans, just allies who are supportive of people who are not represented.
I mean, I guess it depends what you're trying to, there are loads of people from all sorts of fan groups in this chat at the moment and some of them have got different things that they're trying to achieve. So that's all part of it. And I think that's what's really important, is that it's driven by, the best fan groups are driven by fans who are driven by something. Doesn't matter what it is. Hopefully it's all kind of good and inclusive, but you're driven by something, whether it's about safe standing or keeping away ticket prices down, or being LGBTQ plus inclusive, or being inclusive of fans of colour, I
will just add one last thing before we move on to the next slide. Just to leave this with the audience, is that what has your sexuality got to do with football, with being a football supporter? I don't think in my lifetime I'll ever be able to walk hand in hand with Gary to a football match. I know I would feel vulnerable to an attack. I would feel that someone would say something. Now, we're all different. Football is full of opinions, and we know that, and we see things differently. A little bit like what Jim was saying from Pride of Irons about, does your boyfriend know you're here? Some people will see it in different lights, and Jim got an experience with a 10-year-old lad next to him with two dads. And I'm just saying that question, just have in your head that two men, and I've seen two women holding hands in hands at Villa Park, and I was great. But I feel as a man sometimes, it's really difficult, especially when you go to an environment like football at times in stadiums, and if someone saw you do that and it's the wrong person, it could turn really nasty. And I just want to leave that with you. And that's why sexuality is really important, because just like Daniel said, it's a part of you, and someone should be able to hold their hands or have a kiss or share a photo, and people to be, oh, cool, they're two people of the same sex.